Okay. So in the last few classes, we discussed about chart of accounts, and also we have seen how to create the primary ledger in the system. Along with that, we discussed about enterprise structure, how the enterprise structure is similar or different when you compare with EBS multi-org structure. Along with these concepts, we discussed about P2P cycle, procure to pay cycle, and O2C, order to cash cycles in last few sessions. So along with this, we are going to talk about the chart of accounts best practices, and if any other relevant information related to enterprise structure, we will talk all those points along with this chart of accounts best practices. When you do the implementation, how many chart of account segments we choose and the reasons we discussed. So these are the typical size of chart of accounts which you see in the real-time implementation. It could be 7 or 8, sometimes maybe 6 or 9, 10 also. The few rules what we should remember all the time is minimum 2 segments and max 30 segments. What are the minimum 2 segments? Company and account. You tell me what are the 2 mandatory labels in the chart of accounts and what is the purpose? One second. If you are very clear, explain, otherwise no. 2 points. One is which are mandatory, 2 mandatory labels. Second question is what is the purpose of those 2 labels? Already we have seen in the system the purpose. If you can explain. What are those 2 and what are the purpose of those 2 labels? Anyone?
Natural account and company primary balancing segment. For company, we assign primary balancing segment. That is for company point level, we need to balance the debit and credit balances. So we need this company for primary balancing segment. And for account, for natural account, for account, we have assigned natural account segment. That is for knowing the account type, which account type we are doing the transactions. For that reason, we have assigned it.
Yeah, that's true, but you can explain in the better way. It is not like knowing the account type. Okay, to set the account type, the terminology is very, very important. That talks about your experience, how much you have. If I say we use natural account segment label to set the nature of account or to set account type, that sounds in one way for experienced people. If you say what you said, okay, that they can catch it. What is your experience? That is the reason whatever I'm explaining, use the same terminology. Okay, that really works wherever you use those. Yes, the other one is, as you mentioned, to balance debit and credits, we use primary balance and segment label. Along with that, you should include one more point. To balance the company values also. 2 points we have to address over there. 2 labels are mandatory: primary balance and segment label and natural account segment label. The purpose of primary balance and segment label is it ensures in every transaction the debit company is getting balance with the credit company as well as debit amount with the credit amount. And with the help of natural account segment label, you can set nature of account. Every account what you create, you can set the nature, or you can say set account type. So this is what we should be able to explain when you talk about it. So instead of calling as 2 segments are mandatory in the chart of accounts, those are company and account. Now you can start calling these segments based on the labels. Since we are assigning primary balancing segment label to company segment you can call as balancing segment. Since balancing label we are assigning, this you can call as a balancing segment. And we are assigning natural account segment label to account segment. Now, instead of calling it as account segment, you can start calling as natural account segment. Okay, try to understand this naming conventions, how we are deriving the naming conventions based on the labels what we are assigning. Okay, based on the labels what we are assigning, based on that you can call these segments as a balancing segment and natural account segment. Okay, just remember the terminology. From now, don't call it as a company and account. So in chart of accounts, two segments are mandatory. What are those?
Balancing segment and account segment. Master.
Balancing segment and natural account segment. Now I'll ask one question. Which segment is balancing segment in the chart of accounts? Company. Which segment is natural account segment in the chart of accounts? Sorry?
Accounts.
Accounts not account.
Yeah.
Now, 100% your second statement is true, but 99% first statement is okay, but the 1% it can be something else. So that is the reason we should not say company is the balancing segment. What we should say? To which segment we are assigning primary balancing segment label, that segment is balancing segment. To which segment we are assigning balancing segment label, that segment is balancing segment. To which segment we assign natural account segment label, that segment is natural account segment. 100% we assign natural account segment label to account. 99% we assign primary balancing segment label to company. Sometimes your primary balancing segment may not be your company, it could be something else. You may use some different naming convention. So this is what we have to understand. What are the possible names as a prime balancing segment in chart of accounts? Let's talk about it. When you do the real-time implementation, many companies, many clients, we use company segment, but some clients, they don't prefer to have company segment. They go with a different naming convention. And here one important rule, I think better we can talk about chart of accounts best practices, then we'll proceed with that. So there we can get some clues. So let me talk about the best practices when you talk about the chart of accounts. Fine. Just give me a second. Done. So when you talk about best practices to design the chart of accounts, okay, the best practices to design the chart of accounts. What is the purpose of primary balance and segment label? To balance the transactions with balancing segment value. Now, when you call the company segment as a balancing segment, because we are assigning primary balancing segment label to company, the company segment you can start calling as a balancing segment. You take here When you assign the primary balancing segment label to company segment, you can start calling as a balancing segment. When the segment name is company, these are the company segment values. When you call it as a balancing segment, these you should call as balancing segment values. The balancing segment related values we call as balancing segment values. Just to make a note of the point. Balancing segment values. What do you mean by balancing segment values? Anyone, please?
It's the company name.
Any other definition?
Segment values are nothing but balancing segment values.
No, not correct. The balancing segment related values are balancing segment values. How department? Do you think department values are balancing segment values?
No.
No. Which segment values are balancing segment values?
Company.
Balancing segment values are balancing segment values. Which is our balancing segment?
Where we have assigned the primary balancing segment label.
That's it. That is a proper answer. What is your balancing segment means? To which segment you assigned primary balancing segment label, that segment is balancing segment. It could be anything. 99% company. Sometimes it can be something else. To which segment we are assigning primary balancing segment label, that segment we call as a balancing segment. That segment related values we call as balancing segment values. If I assign primary balancing segment label to department, now you tell me what do you call as a department, and the department values, how do you call?
Balancing segment we call as department.
Department you call as a balancing segment. Why do you call department as a balancing segment?
Because we have assigned primary balancing segment to department.
That's it. That is only the point. Which label you are assigning, that is a matter. If you assign primary balancing segment label to department segment is balancing segment. Within the department segment, what are the values we have? We call as
Balancing segment.
values. That's it. Okay, the department values we call as balancing segment values. Reason, department segment is balancing segment. You assign primary balancing segment label. So this is very important. These points we have to be very, very clear. Why we are calling with what name? Based on the labels we are calling. Now, so if you assign primary balancing segment label to company, the company level, everything can be balanced. So when you create the transaction, the company values we are calling as a balancing segment values. In every transaction, the debit and credit, you have to use the same balancing segment value. If you use the company 1000, debit, credit also 1000. That is a balancing segment value. And the debit amount should be equal to credit amount. So we are talking about primary balancing segment label. In the same way, we have secondary balancing segment label and third balancing segment label as per system. It means you can assign primary balancing segment label to company department. For other segment, you may assign secondary balancing segment label. You may assign third balancing segment label to other segment. If you assign to 3 segments, when you record the transactions, what will happen? In all the transactions, 3 segment level, you have to balance the transaction. Say, for example, primary balancing segment label we assign to company, secondary balancing segment label you are assigning to department, third balancing you are assigning to project. In every transactions, in every application, in every transaction, the company should be same for debit and credit line. Department should be same for debit and credit. Project should be same for debit and credit. If somewhere something is not matching, not balancing, you cannot process the transaction. Okay, but as a best practice, never suggest more than one balancing segment. You no need to educate. Hey, you can use 3 balancing. Yes, they can use. You have it through 200, 300 speed in your car. It is not safe at all. If you go maybe beyond 100 speed, you will be in the risk. Here also you have up to 3. The best is 1. So what level you want to produce your reports? What is the key element in terms of reporting that you take as a primary balance and segment label? Let Oracle given 10 balance and segment label, don't use it, those labels. You can go up to 3 as per functionality. Oracle is providing 3 balance and segment label. So as a best practice, always we recommend to have only 1 primary balance and segment label. I recommend as a consultant, you never educate your client. You can use 2, 3 balance and segments also. When you say they come up with a requirement, there will be many challenges with that. Okay, you can implement by using 2, 3 primary balance and segment labels. When it comes to system usage, there are many complexities, challenges. So as a consultant, as a best practice, you first don't educate the client since it's not good. So when you are teaching somebody how to drive the car, you don't teach, you can go up to 300 speed. You teach them just okay, 80 is safe or max you can go 100 depending on the road condition and etc. etc. So we never teach like go 200 speed, 300 also you can go, you can try one time. We never teach that. The same way in the system, you have a secondary balancing segment label, third balancing segment label as a consultant. By knowing how those create the issues, don't suggest as a best practice, you suggest them to have only 1 balancing segment. Only 1 balancing segment in the chart of accounts. Other point. Always you should suggest future segments. We are not sure about the future. There may be some requirement may come up. When some new requirements will pop up, if you take the decision to add additional segment, doesn't work. So you have to create the room space for future as a buffer segments, future segments. Always you suggest to have a future segments. And whatever business units you create in the system, as per enterprise structure we discussed. I think below we have the data. How many business units you are going to create? You tell me, anyone tell me if you are very clear, how many business units we should create. I am doing implementation for one of my client in US. You tell me how many business units I should create. The direct answer.
As many locations you have.
Yeah. So how many locations I'm operating the business, those many business units I create, because where I am doing the business. I want to capture everything detail level in each location, how much expense we are spending, how much revenue are creating, generating. So what level I want to capture for each location I can create. Sometimes location may be 1. In one location, if you are doing the 2 businesses, how many business units?
We can go with 1 or 2.
One, sir. Basically
Not
one.
1, 2 only. 2 you have to say. 1 is not a right practice.
Okay.
You are doing the 2 businesses. If you create 1 business unit, you cannot have a better tracking and controlling and defaulting the data security, etc. etc. So to leverage these benefits of business unit, always we have to go with separate business unit concept. Even if in one location you are doing 2 businesses. Okay. As you mentioned, in even 2 businesses you have, you can use 1 business unit, but many things you cannot maintain properly. Okay, it will become challenge. That is not right practice also. So that is the reason what we have to do is here 1 point we have to understand as a best practices. When you create the chart of accounts as a best practice, What are the balance and segment values you are going to create? Nothing but company values. Those should be equal to your business units. Okay. Your balance and segment values. What do you mean by balance and segment values?
The segments which are related to the balancing segment or balancing segment values.
Yeah. Here in our case, company, right? The company values.
Yes.
Those should be equal to our number of business units. This is very, very important. So the balance and segment values, what you create in your chart of accounts, those you have to create based on your business units. If you have 10 BUs, create 10 balance and segment values. You might be doing one business. It may be in the 10 locations. 10 locations, 10 business units. 10 business units create 10 balance and segment values. That's it. So this is a very, very important point. You have to ensure how many business units you have, those many balance and segment values in the chart of accounts. One more point is, for our reporting point of view, the reporting standpoint of view, we have to create segment values as a parent and child relation. So create parent and child relationship for the values. This you will understand. There will be one separate session on rapid implementation. There I'll take you through very detailed level to understand how the relations will work, how it will support. For now, just make a note. So we have to create parent and child relationship for all the segment values. It could be companies or department accounts. We have to create the parent and child relationship. And don't create segments which you can use in the specific application. If anything you are creating in the chart of accounts, that segment should be useful in the many applications. If the segment is going to be useful in the one application or two application, don't take that as a segment in the chart of accounts. Okay, you can say, don't create segments specific to application. Don't create segments which are very specific to one or two application. If you create something as a segment, that should be useful in the many applications. And the bottom line point, very important point is, what are the chart of accounts you are creating that should support your reporting requirements? Always that should be aligned as per our reporting requirements. That's very, very important. It could be internal reporting or external reporting. Anything about your business. By keeping all these points in the consideration, you should create your chart of accounts for your clients. Okay, as a consultant, you should aware of all these points. So only one balance and segment you suggest, don't educate. If you ask me, I say don't educate your client about secondary, third balancing. They will definitely ask you, we need second, third also, or at least second. That will create many challenges. Once you tell them you can use second, even if you say there will be challenges, they don't listen to you. Like they'll become a kid. They'll say they want. Then there will be some challenges. Okay, always suggest you ask them very politely. You can ask them, okay, so you want to record the transaction, you want to generate the reports primarily at what level? Company level. You think, okay, company we will make as a primary balance and segment label. Don't discuss much about it. So that's how you have to manage certain things. Then future segments. You explain them what is the benefit of future segments. and ensure that the balance and segment values will be equal to business unit. Some clients, what they say is, hey, we are doing the business in 2 locations in US. We want to have 1 business unit. There are a few clients, they are using it. But the issue is, yes, they can have 1 balance and segment value. Sorry, they can have 1 business unit, and in 1 business unit, they can have 2 companies, 2 locations, 2 balance and segment values, but business unit is only one as US business unit. In US, say they are doing the business in kind of Dallas and Austin. The Austin 1 balance and segment value, Dallas 1 balance and segment value, but BU name is US BU. That is okay. Still system will support. But unfortunately, in the system, anything you want to set as a controls, anything you want to set as a futures or functionalities, those all you can set only business unit level. Business unit level only you can set. Now you are going to set at business unit level. In the same business unit, you are going to have 2 balance and segment values, say 1,000 and 2,000. Whatever you set in this business unit, same will be applicable for these 2. If you have a business requirement in company 1,000 or branch 1,000, you want to record the transactions different from 2,000. Certain rule you want to set, but you cannot set it. Both are under same business unit. Any controls or defaults you can set BU level, not at balance and segment value level. To leverage the benefit of business unit in the system, if you have a 2 balance and segment values, you create 2 business units. So each business unit level you can set controls that will be applicable for relevant balance and segment value. This is a very, very important point which you should be very, very clear about it. So always ensure how many balance and segment values they are going to have, those many business units they have, or else how many business units they have, those many balance and segment values you are creating. It should not be like this. They have a 5 views, they have a 20 balance and segment value. Possible. System will support. There will be few challenges. They cannot take the benefit of the business unit concept in the fusion as a best. So when they are not able to take, even if they are using the fusion application, what is the benefit? Okay, to take the better outcome or benefit out of the product, they are going to use this fusion. If they are killing the capacity of the product, if they are using what is the use of the product. That is the reason this is a very, very important point. Okay. Question, any question?
Sir, could you explain any one point which supports the point which you have said that chart of accounts should support reporting requirements? So could you explain one point, which type of requirement?
Any report, see, you are going to generate the report. What level you want to generate the reports? Company level and company level you want to generate. Ensure company you have another segment. You want to generate the report based on company and department. Ensure you have a company and department as a segment. You want to generate the report based on company and account. Ensure you have a company and account segment. That's it. It could be any report. It could be any, like you may create income statement or balance sheet or trial balance or cash flow statements, anything. Any financial reports you generate. So you should be able to capture enough or say required information as a part of report generation. Whatever the segments you have, accordingly you can generate the reports. That's it.
Sir, then what if a company has subsidiary companies, like a parent company, holding companies having couple of subsidiaries?
Here
And
you
then
can
under-
manage. Here you can manage.
Okay.
Your subsidies will become chains.
So your balancing segment will be attached to the company, because company might have been like
Your
couple of
com-
companies.
No. That your company only balance and segment.
Okay.
Your company only balance and segment. Say your company is XYZ.
Mhm.
Okay. It has subsidiaries like X, Y, and G. Okay, this is your parent.
Correct.
Okay. So this is your corporate entity. These are the subsidiaries. Now, if you will be recording the transactions with this. These are the actual entities where you are doing the business. These three you create as a three balancing segments, values, company values.
Okay.
Sometimes this may be your head office or corporate office or actual entity. Sometimes with XYZ, you don't record any transaction. You treat as a parent. Any transactions will happen within these three entities. Okay. In those
Yes.
scenarios, for these three, you create three business units.
So my question is, what if XYZ also does business and then has XYZ?
Yeah, simple. Anyway, this also you create one of the company.
Mm-hmm.
You create one business unit for that.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. That's what two cases. XYZ, it may not be operational, right? It can be operational, it may perform, it may involve in the business activities, or else it may be sitting as a head to look after how other subsidiaries are doing. If this also
Yes.
involved in the business, if there are any transactions, if you want to record the transactions, you create, in this scenario, create 4 business units. Now, other case, these three are into business. The X has 2 branches. Y has only 1 branch. G has 4 branches. Now you tell me how many business units we have to create. It is not into business, it is like a headquarters.
7.
That's it.
Okay.
Okay. So count. So 3 businesses. Each one has only 1 branch in one location. Then how many business units?
What is that? Each one
Three.
has a. Okay.
Each one has only 1 branch.
Mm-hmm.
How
So
many
naturally 3.
business units?
3.
3. Now, what is the difference between this case and this case? This 3 has 1 branch. This each one has these 2 1 4 branches. What is the difference you find with respect to business units?
You can balance it at X level, Y level, and Z level.
Yeah, correct. Oh no, okay. I was expecting the point. See, in case of 1 your companies are your business units, right?
Correct.
In these scenarios, your companies are not your business units. What are your business units?
Branches.
That's it,
Yeah.
branches.
Mm-hmm.
But the first case or second case, always we will have a segment called as company owned. When you say
That is
yeah, when you say company segment called as company, it may refer our 3 companies or it may refer our 7 branches.
So here one question. So agree that XYZ is a company. It's going to have a segment value. And reporting has to happen at corporate level.
Yes,
Like
you group these 3 with this parent. That is what parent and child relation. You make XYZ as a parent. If you generate the reports at parent level, it will fetch the data related to these 3. That's what we call as parent and childs.
okay, now I think I'm clear. Thank you.
Yeah.
That means XYZ will be the balancing segment value.
It can
And
be,
what about-
yes, it definitely, this will create as a balancing, but will create as a parent. When you create parent, you may not record the transactions. But even by keeping it as a parent, if you want to record the transactions, you can record. That is how reality you have. See, you want to record the transactions only with these 3. Yes, okay, record. You want to record the transaction with XYZ also. Yes, record. You want to prepare the reports for all. Then you prepare the reports this level. These 3 are under the same. So you will be able to produce the reports which you call a consolidated report.
So which means that you have to define 4 values as a segment values under company.
Correct.
And then define parent-child relationship so that you can.
Correct. These 3 you make as a childs for this.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you are going to operate the business, with this 3 plus this also. See, even it is a corporate office, it may involve in some activities, right? Financial impact. So if that is the case, with that also you record the transactions. Otherwise, it may not involve in any business activities. So for this, you will record the transactions accordingly, you will create the business units. It would be more clear once we get into the next levels, it would be more clear. By standing here, we cannot understand many things related to this content. Yeah. We'll come to know
For
all.
example, XYZ is not having any business transactions there. Are we defining XYZ as one of a company?
Yeah, always it may perform, may not perform transactions
Hmm.
for relationship purpose to address in the system who is a parent, who are childs. Okay.
Okay.
In some families, parents may not work, childs might be working, but parents as a parents, childs as childs. Okay. That definition we have to do.
Okay.
Okay, that presence we have to represent in the system. Okay, if the parent values are going to involve in some activity, yes, accordingly we set up the business unit, otherwise no business unit is required. Only for child's business units are required to record the transactions.
Okay.
You will understand more, not now. We need some time. Okay. So once
And one more thing,
not creating
when you
all those, we
explain,
can understand.
when
Yeah.
you are explaining, you have said we will have 7 balancing segment values, 20 balancing segment values and all. That means apart from company, you define some other segment as a balancing segment value.
1 second. 7, 10, I never talked about balance on segments. Those are just values. In the same segment, you can have values.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, values, not segments.
Okay.
You may have a 20 companies. 20 companies are 20 balancing segment values.
Okay.
How many balancing segments you can have?
One you can have.
No. 3. We discussed primary, secondary, third. But one we recommend.
Oh, okay.
Okay, max you can have 3 balancing segments in the chart of accounts.
Primary, secondary, and other one is
Third
third balance.
balancing segment.
Okay.
We always recommend to go with only
One.
balancing segment. Yeah.
But in real life, many companies will have secondary balancing segment too, right?
No.
No?
Very less cases. One, we suggest if they want to have secondary. If you have a secondary, what are the challenges you tell me? Since you are mentioning in real life, many companies has. Okay, using, you tell me what are the challenges if you have a like second and third.
You need to balance the values at that secondary and then later on primary.
Yeah, by mistake, if you are not able to balance in the secondary, third, what will happen?
You can't close the account, like ledgers.
No.
The corresponding credit transaction or debit transaction cannot be created.
No.
You can't balance the primary company.
Yeah, that is one thing. Okay, that is one thing. Yes, seriously, that is one point. Other points are, there are a few other points which you have to really understand. So if you are not able to balance, system will allow you to process, but it will take as intercompany transaction, even it is not intercompany.
Hmm.
Yeah. If you have experience, you can answer this. Right? You are creating transaction. Okay. You are creating transaction. By mistake, the secondary balancing segment level or third balancing segment level, debit and credits are not balancing. What system will do? It will take as intercompany. It doesn't treat as you are dealing with your supplier and customer. It will understand it is a, I think these guys choose a different, it may be intercompany. Everything goes wrong, right? Then you may ask the question, then what about primary balancing? You may say is primary balancing or level also it may goes wrong, right? Yes.
Yeah, when we are considering secondary or third going wrong, there is a chance for a primary also to go wrong.
It won't go wrong. What is the reason?
Right.
At a company level, it will balance.
No. Primary balancing. Okay, primary balancing segment value we set at BU level. For this BU, this is the primary balancing segment value. This is how we set.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
For one business unit, we will map on balancing segment value. That means it's fixed. It's a fixed. There is no way where it can unbalanced. So the primary balancing segment level you can set for every business unit. You can create on business unit. You can set 1,000 for this. That's it. Always 1,000 only. BU1 means 1,000. That's it. If you make department as secondary balancing, BU level, what department you have to set? One time you record with the finance, one time you record with HR, one time you record with the something else. What you have to fix? You tell me. Can you set something as fixed?
No.
You will be keep changing, right? Depending on the reality, you have to enter the transactions.
Mhm.
That is the reason. Yeah, please. So that is the reason we never recommend to have more than one balancing segment. Okay. As a consultant, you never educate them. If you educate, they will ask when you it's doing this is very simple. Just select and assign, done. Then many issues will come into picture. Okay. Then why Oracle is offering second, third? To show the capacity. If somebody wants to use it, let them use. Why you have a 200, 300 speed in the car? To show the capacity of the car. Somebody they want to just drive in that way, they can. That's it.
Mm.
So that's a very, very important point. Notice, never recommend more than one. So these are the few points which you have to understand when you talk about designing the chart of accounts as per best practices. Any questions on this, please? No questions. Now, so let's talk about our chart of account segments in real implementation. Okay, how this naming conventions could be. Please go on mute. In real-time implementations, how the naming conventions we use. In real-time implementations, so how the naming conventions we can use. Let me copy this set of segments we will discuss. Let me keep here. Some clients, what they do is max 70 to 80% we use as a company. The rest of 20 to 30%, some clients will go with a different naming convention. Some client says, my business unit is my company here. I have a 10 business units. The 10 business units are maintaining as a 10 companies to facilitate the transaction creation. I want to see this segment also as a business unit. Then you'll have a segment name as a business unit. If not business unit, what are the other names you can take? Just you think and tell me. It is not like one way.
Branches.
That's it. Your branch is your business unit. Okay, you are recording the transaction for which branch you want to record. So you say branch. Some clients, they says instead of company, they prefer to use segment name as a company code. Why they are using company code? Maybe in the previous system, they used to call it as a company code. And it may be their outlet. Maybe their store. Each store they might be taking as one business unit, depending on the business. Some clients, what they say is, company is my balancing segment. They just always try to have segment name also balancing. They prefer to have naming convention as a balancing. So different naming conventions. Sometimes this segment can be our legal entity also. How? Say you are doing the business in India and US. India in India one location, US one location. Now tell me how many business units?
2 business units.
2 business units. How many balance and segment values?
2.
How many legal entities?
2.
2. Your simple point is your number of business units are equal to number of legal entities, right? 2 legal entities, 2 business units. When your number of business units are equal to number of legal entities, nothing wrong, you can take name as a legal entity. Each legal entity refers to one business unit only. Name you can give as a business unit, legal entity, but reality you create with the legal entity name, you create the business unit. Your number of business units are equal to number of legal entities. You can take company name as a legal entity name also, or company name as a business unit also. Say you have a 2 legal entities and you have a 3 business units. Can you take legal entity as a balancing segment?
No,
Why?
because for 2 legal entities, you're having 3 BUs.
Yeah, 3 BUs. 3 BUs you cannot accommodate with this 2 legal entities, right? 3 values we require.
Yes. Yes.
3 values you can have only if you go with the name as business unit.
BU. Mm.
So that is the reason these are the possible naming conventions which you see in the different projects. When you work for multiple projects, you come across all this. Some clients, they prefer to have a company, few clients business unit, few clients branch, company code, outlet, store, okay, balancing, legal entity, operating unit, operational area or business point. Different naming conventions, legal entity, this is how you can see as a part of business. When you talk about department, so some clients, instead of calling it as department, they used to have as a cost center. Sometimes this they can have it as division. Each department they can treat as a division also. Department also can be treated as a division, means the total business operations they are divisioning, they are separating. That way you can see that is as a one of the division segment. You may see as a department or you can see as a cost center. Some clients will call it as a division also. Account, sorry. Some clients will have the different naming conventions. Most of the implementation we call as account. In some implementations, the client will have a preference. They choose the name as segment name as GL code. Since the segment is natural account segment, they call it as segment name itself, they will have as a natural account. Okay. Some clients I have seen just we give a name as account code. So these are the different naming conventions they prefer to have. Who will create? We will create, but they will decide the naming convention. And this future one and all, okay. You may just have some naming convention as F1 means future one, or you can see as a buffer one, some other naming conventions. This is how just you can have this segment naming conventions. Okay, so this is what we have to understand when you talk about chart of account segment related naming convention. Rest almost it could be how they require, what they require, accordingly they can take. Mostly for company, this is how you can see. So company level, whatever this is all about, I'm talking about balancing segment. Okay, these are the possible naming conventions for balancing segment names. So within that, you'll have a balancing segment values. Means you assign the primary balancing segment label to this segment. Okay, with any one of the names we will have, not all the names. Don't take it that way. Any one of the name. Some clients may call it as business unit. Some clients may call it as operating unit. Okay, where they are operating the business, that is operating unit. Where they are doing the business, that is a business unit. As per Fusion, name is business unit. But business unit is a very generic term in the business. Okay, wherever they do the business, the branch outlet that they call as a business unit as per the business terminology. Okay, it is not like just as per our Fusion. The business also the people will call as a business unit, not only our application. So this is what we have to understand. Any questions on this, please? Any questions here, please?
Did you finish intercompany also, sir? Like,
Sorry,
did you finish the intercompany or
finishing in
segment
the
also?
sense.
Means in any previous classes you covered the intercompany?
What we covered? Nothing we covered, right?
Oh, okay. I just joined only on the 13th session onwards. So that's
Okay,
really-
okay. Nothing we covered. You see, this is all about chart of account segments. We discussed, okay, and we listed out the same. We created the system. Okay, intercompany is one of the segment. You are doing the transaction. Say you have 4 branches. You do the business with your suppliers and customer. That is the actual business. Sometimes you may purchase from another branch. You may sell to another branch within your business. To manage such kind of transactions, you can have a segment called as intercompany segment. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. So we didn't do anything with all this. We discussed this is what we can have as a segments in the chart of accounts. That is the point we discussed. By using these segments, you can record the transactions as a description of the transaction. So far, whatever we completed, any
Is
questions?
there any other name for intercompany?
Sorry?
Is there any other name for intercompany?
No, intercompany only. As a short name, they sometimes we use as IC.
I see.
Okay. So I/C.
Call it a branch also?
Sorry,
Can we call it branch also or not?
what branch? Are you talking about intercompany?
Yes.
No, you never call it as a branch. Okay. Here you specify what is your real, as per your business, how you want to call. This is always inter transaction, internal transaction. So you represent as internal. Otherwise, nobody can understand by seeing that. We never
So
give as a branch or outlet something else. It should be as intercompany. Your
So if
primary
we are-
balancing could be branch or company or anything else. But the segment what you are using, what purpose? For internal transactions between the branches. So you should name it as intercompany only.
okay, so if we have one company and multiple branches, then we have to add some segment related to branch also.
So that also the branches all you take in under company segment only. Okay, that's what I explained this point here. One the point we discussed here. Where we took that point. So given some example. Remove it or what? We just take a simple example, right? You have a XYZ. Each business has a different branches.
Okay,
Right.
where you explained the parent-child relationship.
Exactly. That point I only you are asking now again.
Okay.
Yep. So even you have a branches, 3 companies, X, Y, Z, 3 companies. Those may be one branch. Still, you call as a companies. So each branch, each company has two branches. 3 companies, two branches, 6 branches. But still, the segment you call as company. The 6 are not companies, 6 are branches. The branches are belongs to company branches. That is the reason segment name remain as a company only. Even those are branches.
So in that example, what does in the intercompany, what is the value set you get? Are
Say
those
how many balance and segment values we have, all you take as intercompany.
okay? Got it.
Yeah. The same we did in the system also, right? I'm not sure whether you attended or not. Whatever we took as a companies, we created as an intercompany in our class.
Okay. This is my second class. So
Okay, yeah, got you, yeah.
We can use the same value set for the
Same
intercompany, right?
values. No, you should not use. In EBS, you can use it. In the fusion, you should not.
Why?
We
Yes,
have to
sir.
add dummy also, right? In that, it's a
Sorry?
different. We have to add dummy also in the intercompany, right? That's a different value.
No, not because of that. Dummy you can have in the company also. Company segment also you can have one spare value. Wherever real transaction is not involved, you want to process transaction, you can use dummy. Not because of that. The question who asked why, the question who asked, can we use company as a intercompany value set? Do you have experience on EBS?
Yes.
Okay. Now tell me, in EBS, the security rule. Do you know security rule concept?
Yeah.
What level security rules works in EBS? What level? You can set up the security rule.
Yes.
Not as others, please. I'll ask your question to you on. You answer so that I can explain you better. My question is SR. SR you can set at what level within the EBS?
Segment to particular segment values.
Segment
Like-
values. Yes, on segment values only we set, but what level you can implement it? What level?
User level.
You
Okay. Cross validation is in across.
forget about it. Forget about cross validation, data access, etc. No points bring here. We are talking about SR. SR you can set in EBS segment level. Right? You create the SR
Yes.
for segment so that you can apply the rule on the segment related values.
Yes.
So
Okay.
in EBS, since you are setting the secure rule on the segment, okay, you can use company value set for intercompany also. EBS. We do that, right? EBS.
Yeah, we do that.
But fusion we don't do. The reason is SR, security rule works at value set level in the fusion.
Value set level. Okay.
If you create the secure rule at value set level for company, unfortunately, if you are going to use the same value set for intercompany, it will conflict, right?
Yes.
That is the reason we don't use in the fusion. Okay. In EBS, SR, secure rules works at
Segment
level. So since those works at segment level, let them work in the segment level. Value set we can use here and there. No worries. Company value set you can use for intercompany also. But in the fusion, the secured rules itself will work at value set level. What are the value set you are creating for company? You may set secured rule as per the company values requirement. The same values we need for intercompany. If you are going to use for intercompany segment, the same value set, the same rules will be applicable for this, right?
Yes.
That you may not require. That is the reason we should create separate value set for intercompany in the fusion. That's what we did in our class also. Yeah, you can take this note.
So values will be the same, but the value set
Values will be same.
right?
Values will be same. Value set would be different.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, that's all about the segment level understanding and these points. You should understand the best practices when you design the chart of account, and you have to be very, very clear about each and every point. Okay, this is a clear. Okay, only one balance in segment. You can have up to 3, never recommend. Okay, when you recommend, what happens? If any other balance in segment level, if anything goes wrong, everything will become mess. Because as per system, for one balance in segment level, you can set the business unit level, you can set for only one balance in segment. For remaining balance in segments, you cannot set the defaults. That is the reason it goes wrong. And the controls you cannot implement for other balance in segments. And again, if anything goes wrong, it will take as intercompany, even that is not intercompany. Many challenges we will face. And again, when we are going to create supplier sites and all, we map with the business unit, not balance and segment values level. As per your business, so what you do, it will conflict when it comes to supplier sites, maintenance and all. Many challenges will face. Never suggest or never recommend to have more than one balance and segment value. Okay, balance and segment, sorry, not value, balance and segment. Then already we discussed, always you should recommend future segments. What is the reason and all, already we discussed in the previous classes. So your number of business units should be equal to number of balance and segment values. Or balance and segment value may be your branch or legal entity, or it could be anything. As per our past discussion, you can understand that. And create parent and child relation. This you don't try to understand now. I'll show you in the system when we are dealing with a specific concept. Maybe after 2-3 classes, you will come to know about it more detail level. And don't create segments which are specific to application. Say for example, don't create segment called as supplier in the chart of accounts. Supplier very much possible to create and use in the payables and purchasing application. If payables and purchasing application doesn't have a capacity of creating supplier, you create all the suppliers in your chart of accounts by keeping segment as supplier. But we have a system capacity. Why do you bring that into chart of accounts, which is limited again to 1 or 2 applications? In the same way, customer, okay, or employee. These all you wanted to bring into the chart of accounts as segments. These all can be managed by respective application. Again, that usage is also limited. You cannot use your supplier in the receivables. You cannot use your supplier in the fixed assets. You cannot use your supplier in the inventory. You cannot use your supplier in the GL. You cannot. You may use supplier in the payables and purchase. Then anyway, those applications will allow you to capture the transaction supplier wise. Don't bring that into chart of accounts as segments. That is the meaning of don't create segments which will be very, very specific to 1 or 2 applications. Try avoid those. Okay, avoid those. And another point is try to minimize the number of segments. Okay, minimize number of segments in COA. So you to try to minimize. That is our application we have. Application has a capacity. Every application got capacity like to capture the relevant data. Typically, you don't need to create the chart of accounts with too many segments. Okay, what data you have to capture across the application that you can take as a segment. What data need to be captured within the application, that application related transaction activities has that capacity. Okay, so when you are creating invoice, you can select supplier. When you are making the payment, you can select the bank account details within the payables. That supplier and bank accounts you don't need to create as one of the segments within the chart of accounts, not required. So this is how just you can understand. You try to minimize the number of segments. If you use many segments, it will cause some performance issues also. The other point is not required. Okay, every application has got its own capacity of capturing the data. You don't need to create many segments, but always keep in your mind, try to minimize the number of segments for better performance of system. So these are the points we have to understand respective to best practices when you design the chart of accounts. This is very, very important. If you don't know all this, even if you know the entire application, Fusion application, you are not a consultant. If you don't know how to just On what base we design the chart of enterprise structure? You are not a consultant. You may get the title, but you are not a consultant. You should be able to give consulting services to the client, saying that which is right, which is wrong. Client can ask anything. They don't know. They are new to this product. They are doing the business. They'll say, please do this, please do that. You should be there to give the consulting services as an expert. Okay, when you know all this, what to do, what not to do, why this and all, you'll be able to help them. Then you will become real consultant. So this is what we have to understand. Going forward, we'll understand many points related to this, and accordingly we'll be able to do better. Okay. So done. In tomorrow's session, we'll start with the system again. Okay, we are good with this information like P2P cycle, O2C cycle, enterprise structure, best practices about chart of accounts. So based on this, we can start working on the system. We'll start creating enterprise structure. Okay, only we created primer ledger when you talk about enterprise structure, right? Only primer ledger we created, and from our previous classes, we'll see enterprise, division, legal entity, business unit, inventory, organization. That's how we can keep moving. Any questions, please? If no questions, we can wind up for today. Okay.